Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Leading in the Digital Era. I'm Robert Field, and today we'll be joined by Kim Sharp, Lori Parsons, and Aaron Brown. And we're going to talk about something that I think is critical to being an authentic leader, to your personal professional growth, and really gaining your leadership capacity through authenticity. And being an authentic leader has always been a real important concept to me, and how we treat people around us, and how you treat yourself. And Aaron will teach us a little bit about the body scan and how our bodies store an unbelievable amount of data that allows us to give us a sense of how we react to situations, how they unfold, and how we navigate challenges, and make better decisions. But as we go through this, we'll discuss not only the importance of awareness, but what do we do about that, and what happens when the problem is actually us. So if you've ever been in that situation where you look at your culture of your organization and maybe you can change it, but you were also the cause of it, how do you navigate through that? So we'll go through some of that today. We'll talk about some people's journeys, and maybe we'll learn a thing or two from a longtime friend, Aaron Brown, and walk away with some real good tools and tips on how to be just a little bit more authentic, and understand how we can listen to ourselves and get through our own leadership journey, and how we develop ourselves in what we have within us. So with that, first I'd like to introduce Lori. Lori, there you go, Lori Parsons. How are you?
Hi, Rob. Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us, Lori. You want to tell us a quick little bit about you?
Sure. I'm Lori Parsons. I'm an HR executive. I've been leading various areas of HR for longer than I want to say. Benefits, compensation, and wellness. And my primary role here is HR, but really transforming the culture of our organization as our organization has evolved. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Lori, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And then I'd like to bring Kim to the table. Kim Sharp, fellow MES attendee. Kim, it's nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you, Rob. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. If you mind telling everybody a little bit about you.
I'm Kim Sharp. I'm an IT executive, and I, like Lori, have been doing that for a very long time. Lori and I are peers, and we are both part of an organization that is undergoing a significant amount of transformation. I've been through 5 CEOs and 3 name changes since I've been with the company. And people are the focus, and I like the topic of an authentic leadership style. So this is going to be an exciting session, Rob. Thank you.
Kim, thank you for joining us. Thank you both for your insight, and what I've learned about you and your journey so far. And I think the journey wouldn't have been so easy for any of us, right? And we both spent a lot of time with our friend Aaron Brown. So, Aaron, if you don't mind joining us here.
Hi, guys.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Rob. Hi, Kim. Hi, Lori. I am so privileged to hang out with 3 of my favorite people on the planet at the same time. So let's see, quick intro. Some people know me as Jules' husband. Other people know me as a physiologist or neuroscientist, entrepreneur, former tech exec for the last decade, and coach for the last 20 years. And so, yeah, there you go. That's me.
Well, Aaron, I appreciate you joining us, and I usually don't bring anyone here I haven't had time with, and I appreciate all the time you guys have spent with me throughout this process. And Aaron, by the way, there aren't only 3 people here of your favorite people. I've gotten a lot of calls about people who will be watching you, if not today, live, tomorrow when we stream to YouTube. But there'll be a lot more of your favorite people that'll be watching this.
I'm sure.
Not only 3 of us. Aaron and I had a chance not only meet with Kim and Lori prior to this. We spent some time over in Orlando at MES, and we broke this down a little bit too. And Aaron was one of those guys with me when I went through some personal and professional transitions last year, and he taught me a lot about about myself and how I get through those things. And through his app and through his teachings, it really opened up a lot of insights to where I'm blessed enough to have a lot of coaches in my life, and privileged to spend a lot more time with Aaron than most, I guess. So I appreciate you all being here. And if you don't mind, Aaron, I'm going to start with the ladies first, of course. But I do have a question for each of you. And Lori, if you don't mind starting, maybe take a minute and just break down for me a little bit. What was life like before, prior to your breakthrough, prior to the learnings you did with Aaron or your coaching? What was life like before that?
So I would say becoming an HR executive, I thought throughout my career, I thought that I needed to kind of prove that I could handle difficult things, be very tough and practical, and demonstrate that I could do the hard stuff. And I think that's true, but I did it through learning coping strategies by suppressing emotion, by focusing on the task at hand and disregarding how I was feeling. And I got really good at it. And I ignored my body and I ignored my emotions and I focused on what needed to get done. And I learned that that caused a bit of damage for me. So working with Aaron has really helped me to kind of unlearn a lot of that practice that was effective but maybe misguided.
Thank you, Lori. Kim, can you answer the same question, please?
Sure. I'm reminded when I thought of the saying, hindsight is 20/20. And I thought I was a successful leader of people and mentor, and I was a wife that was loving and caring, and a mother, and I was a great daughter because I took care of my family, and I had a wonderful team, and I was nurturing and helping them grow. And what I didn't realize, that Aaron helped me realize, is that I was incredibly stressed, and that my need for perfection was a lifelong pain that was inside of me that stopped me from actually being my best version of myself. And it manifested in some really amazing ways. And Aaron was very quick to pick up on that. And I remember a conversation where he said, my goal is for you not to need a bite guard anymore, because I grind my teeth when I'm stressed. And so I was like, sure, that's never going to happen, Aaron. I'm sorry. But my transformation was more a personal and professional, in that I was learning to be the best version of myself, but believe in myself as an executive. I had a lot of doubt, and imposter syndrome is real. New CEO, new company name. I felt like I didn't belong. And Aaron helped me change all that.
I'm sorry, we do a script before this and we have all these questions, and I have to go off it immediately because over the
You go, Rob. You go.
Over the last few weeks, I've been a little frustrated with Aaron, and we've had some conversations without you guys. And I didn't understand what he's been talking about until this moment. And Aaron said to me, I have to teach you how to unlearn what you've learned in the past. And it didn't resonate with me until you two, and we didn't talk about this during our time. We came with the questions since then, and it didn't resonate with me because I've been thinking about my own story and my own journey with Aaron, but I didn't get a chance to step outside. So the two of you had these, and I guess the three of us have had these ideologies of what we should be, and working through Aaron, you came up with something new, and Aaron taught you how to unlearn that. And I didn't, Aaron, I apologize for the last few weeks yelling at you, but
it's okay. I get it from everybody. Don't worry. Part of the deal.
I do want to break into a little bit of this in a few minutes, and I do appreciate what you want to teach everyone today and where we want to go. But the leadership component of what Kim and Lori have taught themselves up to the point where they worked with you. But I'd like to, before we get there, they've had some growth since then, and they're in a different place now. So Kim, where are you now, and what do your orgs look like now post your starting and working?
I got to interrupt for 1 second, Rob, because Kim and Lori won't do this. They won't brag about themselves. They're not that type, or I'm very comfortable bragging about myself. They were already two amazing leaders. I only work with high capacity leaders. I took them on because they were high capacity leaders. So they won't say that, but they were leading and doing some amazing things. They were mentoring. They were doing wonderful things for the people they led, for their organization, and for people outside the organization and in the industry. And so respectively in technology for Kim and in HR for Lori. So they were already amazing. My job was just to help them see themselves more clearly and make a space where they could do that. So they'll downplay what they were already accomplishing. They're both very successful in a very large organization, and they've just gotten more clear on who they are and how they operate best. So that's all I want to say.
Sure. And if you take a minute and you look up Kim and Lori on LinkedIn, you'll see that they haven't always been very accomplished, but their approach towards leadership pre-Aaron and post-Aaron is sort of what I would like them to deliver right now. And their accomplishments have always been, I'm sure, tremendous, and the impact of society on what they thought they needed to be versus what they've unlearned and learned now because of you is their growth. But how are their organizations and how's their approach now is hopefully a story they're willing to share with us. And
Yeah,
it's not Kim's in Vegas right now, so while she has water with her, we don't know if that's vodka or not. But Kim,
It is not vodka. I wish it were at this point, but no. So what are things like now? It's amazing, actually, because there's a leadership style that Aaron has given a light to with him from myself from within. So this concept of a body scan and entering into difficult conversations. Conflict is healthy, and being able to gain trust and have connections with your leadership team, with your peers, with your employees, it's very important. And in order to be successful in an environment that is constantly changing, technology, we are the agents of change, but our organization has elected to be transformative year over year. and with that transformation comes a lot of anxiety. There's apprehension, and leading through that is difficult. And you need to lead through that from within. And you need to recognize that you're feeling a certain way, and therefore, how are your people feeling? The human element and the side of this that Aaron has taught me. I had it, but I was also stifled by the things that were going on inside of me. So dealing with that, getting myself in the right place, has now enabled me to get my people, I think, in a good place through some pretty exciting changes. And you're about to embark on another set of changes, and we've got a lot of work to do, but I think they're thriving, and we're having fun. We're engaged, and we're feeling together through this change. And feelings are important. They're valid. They're real, and all human beings have them. And I jokingly say, don't forget about the humans. Everything that we do from a technology perspective, it's people, process, and technology. So we can't forget about the humans. Well, for a while, I forgot about the humans and was more concerned about the transformation and what I looked like as an executive, and was I really performing well, and was I being perfect in my answers to my CEO? And that stopped me from being the best me I could be. And so what Aaron has given me is the ability to take a step back, to scan my body, and to say, okay, what am I really seeing from these people? I need to be attuned with them and making sure that I'm listening and hearing what they need me to hear, and responding like the leader they need me to be. And I think that's who I am today. I don't know who I'll be tomorrow, because I'm sure after this, Aaron's got some words for me.
well, Aaron, she's doing great, so let's hold off on those for a minute. And Lori, what does your org look like now?
It's a bit similar to what Kim said, but I'll say learning to step back, listen to what my body is telling me, honor what my body is telling me, and learn from it. And then I think, to Kim's point too, there's some power in being vulnerable. So being open with others about what we're feeling invites others to openly share how they're feeling, and it really builds a connection with people that you can't build without being vulnerable. So I think that's a big learning element for me. I've learned to have a radical commitment to what is, and that's Aaron's term, but it's really not reading into what I think someone means or what I think someone's thinking. It's really about what is the truth, what is the real truth, and how do I handle that as opposed to having a reaction. So in the past where something might have hijacked me or caused me to be concerned about having some sort of confrontational conversation, I'm now able to have those discussions in a more open, candid way, without, overthinking it or making up my own narrative or putting myself in some sort of victim mentality, and really just focus on the reality. And it's been really empowering to see that happen repeatedly, and being able to practice it and get better at it has really helped in my role.
Thanks, Laurie. So, Mike. So, okay, great comment by Joyce. And so I'm going to throw this to Aaron first before I ask Laurie and Kim with it. But so Aaron, I a lot of my platform is about diversity, inclusion, women in leadership, and do you see that do women feel they need to perform more than the male counterparts? Do you coach males differently than females? Is there any truth to this for the most part? Although, I'm looking from your perspective and from an impartial coaching perspective.
Sure. So some of the things that Laurie and Kim both alluded to was this, feeling their body. And if someone would have told me 4.5 years ago, so I started coaching in 2005, right? Certified physiologist. I mean, my background was the science of the body, and yet I was wholly ignorant. If somebody would have told me 4.5 years ago that I would be more focusing on feelings and our body, I would have called BS. I would have said, no, I've got lots of experience here and have helped many people have breakthrough. And then I had my own breakthrough. So if we have time, I'll get to that, my transformation, and my business partner, who is more on the neuroscience side and actually a psychologist who led me to the methodology that I use now. I would say what I'm experiencing is and what these ladies are alluding to is what we call the human story. We're all born and designed to thrive. Thriving comes through the prefrontal cortex. We're all relating and creating come from what the psychological community has called for over 100 years, the executive functions. And that's no accident that they call those the executive functions. But eventually pain enters the scene. We have some pain in our early life, and I was coaching a very successful executive several weeks back, and she was telling me how she'd never had any pain in her upbringing and in her early life. And I don't go looking for it, but I just know pain is one of the most powerfully formative forces in the world. And so as we dug further, we found out that her parents made it one comment to her growing up repeatedly. She said, I had the best life. My family was really loving. I was really healthy. I never got bullied. I was always successful. Everything I did, just worked out well. Never had any really struggles personally or familially or school or sports. And she said there was one comment that was made to her, and they said, don't rock the boat. And they said that over and over and over in her childhood because that was a family belief. You don't rock the boat. Well, it taught her to believe that she couldn't speak up if it was contrary to any of the other voices in the room. And as you can imagine, that'd be really problematic. And it wasn't just because she's a woman. So I can't answer on behalf of women. What I can say is I coach about 50-50, about 50% women, 50% men. And what I find is almost 100% across the board, we've got some powerless beliefs, we call them, that are operating under the surface that we picked up somewhere in a painful experience. It doesn't have to be dramatic or overly violent or overly, everybody's different. I've got people who their pain comes from a sexual abuse or a physical trauma. And for other people, it was an offhanded comment from somebody they looked up to. And so when we have this pain form in us, this powerless belief, we form it for the purposes of survival. And it helps us survive. The problem is it won't help us to thrive. Eventually, that limiting belief will limit us. So that's the best way I can answer that question.
So we have another show coming up in a couple of weeks, and I was going to call the Women in Cyber, but there's the smartest people in cyber I know, and I I'm upset that I'm calling it the women in cyber, because why, right? And Joyce's question is perplexing to me, right? But I live in New York, and it's a melting pot, and but Kim, Lori, and Kim, if you want to start, are any of your previous beliefs prior to Aaron because of the fact that you're a woman, or is it, do you think that it's a do you need to perform differently because you're a woman versus because you're a man?
Yeah, I thank you, Joyce. Joyce is my good friend, Joyce Reitman, for that great question. Yeah, because as a woman, you don't want to be perceived as being overly aggressive. You don't want to be perceived as being excuse my language, a bitch. And yet you have emotions and feelings that you need to deal with, and you have empathy. I have a significant amount of empathy for everyone, but you can't feel too much. So yes, I think that there is a difference being a woman in a man's world, but that's not true anymore. It is our world. And I think just recognizing that it's okay to feel the way that I feel, but I'm not living in my limbic, as Aaron would tell me. My prefrontal cortex is working, and so my reactions to things are not defensive. I'm not being that passive, oh, meek, woman anymore. I'm actually owning how I feel and channeling that energy in a very positive way. I mean, it is a power with belief that I have now, and I think that being a woman today and having that skill set that Aaron has taught me has made me realize that I am just as worthy of that seat at that table as any man, and that I'm incredible, and I'm wonderful and awful at the same time, just like every other person on this planet. So I shouldn't be treated any differently because I'm a woman.
And you're as a fellow IT leader, you're in a male-dominated industry, not by choice, but by numbers. We have a good friend of the show and of mine, Michael Smith, who's the CEO of Estee Lauder, who I think he's going to say something, but somewhere 40 some odd % of his staff is female, and IT, it's a lot harder, right? There, it's predominantly male. But Lori, how about you? What's did you have the same sense of being a woman defining your leadership prior to Aaron?
I don't know truly how different it is for men versus women, but I think there's definitely an element that, for me personally, fed into that belief that I needed to be strong, and I needed to be able to be focused and more strategic and shy away from the emotion. Maybe that's because I'm a woman. I don't know. But I don't think a lot about male versus female. I think it's really more universal than we think, and we maybe haven't given men a fair shake at being in touch with their body and their emotions. So I think it kind of goes both ways when you kind of step back and look at it.
Well, I appreciate your perspective on that. I love the question. Thank you, Joyce. And I know we have a good question from Manuel here. I'm going to get back to that in a little bit, and maybe if we don't have time, we'll get to a dialogue on LinkedIn. But I do want to jump back into your journey for a second. But before we do, Aaron, I have a question for you about pre and post journey. Why is this not just, or is this just helping build a higher emotional intelligence?
That's a great question. I like that because I studied emotional intelligence 20 years ago. And what I find is that word's thrown around a lot. And I think the big difference is if you look at neuroscience, we've known for quite some time now that all the good stuff, all knowledge workers, all the good stuff we do, it happens in our executive functions, our prefrontal cortex. And the way the limbic system that Kim was referring to is designed, that's the limbic system. You talk about the lizard brain or the animal brain or the child brain. This is our mechanism that's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. And so the difference between EQ, or emotional intelligence, and the empowered model that my partner who commented here first discovered is that our brain is designed for survival. And if that limbic brain gets activated through our five senses, whether we hear something, see something, smell something, taste something, whatever, recognize some kind of threat, our limbic now activates. And to the degree our limbic turns on, our prefrontal turns off. And it throws us into this hyperactive or hypervigilant mode, which causes our brain to move from operating at its normal speed of about 4 miles per hour to about 4,000 miles per hour. That's 1,000 times faster. So for our brain to function that fast, it has to actually truncate and give us a warped representation of reality. That's why if there's a violent crime or something that happens and you have thousands of witnesses, they all have a different story. And they believe it. They pass a lie detector test because that's what they experienced. Doesn't mean it's what actually happened. So when our brain goes into this warped, hyper-vigilant mode of defense, we go into fight, flight, or freeze based on our preferred response. And it's not a conscious response, it's subconscious, right? So I'm sorry, what's the original question? I want to make sure I landed on the original question.
But why this isn't emotional intelligence?
Oh, yeah. So the reason it's not emotional intelligence, because if we don't understand the body, and a neuroscientist named Candace Pert discovered in the 60s that our emotions don't reside in our mind like we think they do. They actually reside in our body, primarily between our chin and our belly button and our core organs. And so when you feel threatened by a comment somebody made, it's not just that you got upset or offended. It's that your visceral response, everything changes in your physiology, and it distorts your ability to think and act well. And so even if you practice coping mechanisms, that's not necessarily going to get you the outcome that you could have if you're operating in your greatest capacity, which is recognizing first, my body is the early warning system. And in Kim's case, like all of us, where she had the jaw grinding at night for years, that no longer happens, right? Mm-hmm. It's the late warning system as well. Your bodies, all of our bodies are starting to break down because we're in the digital era where the beeps and the blips and the clicks, they're coming faster and more furious than ever, not to mention social media and politics and all the other things. So emotional intelligence would speak to recognizing emotions, but when you understand the actual physiological effect on the body and our soul, which we'll define for our purposes as our deeply held core values that we don't have to think about or learn, they're just in every human being, and our mind, our thought life, right? 95% of our thought life is subconscious. So how do we even become aware of that? So if we don't recognize and honor those 4 parts, then there's no way we're going to have success in reaching our greatest capacity.
So it's a lot. You shared a slide with us. John, do we have the slide handy by any chance? Yeah.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Rob.
No. So, and you keep talking about how we feel and our body. And can you talk to this real quick? Because maybe this will unpack it a little bit for all of us and me more now.
Yeah. So before we talk about the slide, just one backdrop is when I engage people on an individual, on a team, and on an organizational level, depending on where they're at or where they sense the problem is. But ultimately, for us to reach our greatest capacity, whether it be in a team or even in your marriage or your family or in an organization, we have to first make sure we're healthy. And that's where that old airplane oxygen mask analogy comes in. And so these are the 5 rhythms that my partner and I have kind of time tested with thousands of people and hundreds of organizations, that these are the 5 rhythms that neurologically cause us to perform at our peak capacity. And that's why I call myself a capacity coach. This first one, I got to put on my glasses. I can't see it. Fortunately, I know it. But speed, right? The speed at which we operate is crucial. And so if we operate at our normal speed, for most of us, it's abnormal. So a saying that my buddy Dean Del Sesto, great author and marketing guru, wrote in his book, he says, we've learned to cope with insanity by calling it normal. And so we learn to operate at this hyper speed, and we end up missing all the cues our body is trying to tell us. And so one of the most foundational rhythm to transform how we perform, whether it be personally, professionally, relationally, creatively, is slowing down. So I challenge my clients to slow and still. And it's amazing how we can then identify where there's some negative forces driving us, whether we think they're external, but ultimately it's causing an internal disruption. right? As we get to understand that, then we can move to the second rhythm, which is safety.
So Aaron, I think if we go through all 5 of these, it might take.
No, I won't go through all 5, but I did want to get to number 2 because safety is absolutely crucial. And what I've learned is if you don't feel safe, you will not learn, and you won't operate at your best. So a leader's job is really first and foremost to create safety. And again, if you told me that 4.5 years ago, I would have called BS and said, no, a leader's job is all these other things that I had in mind. But if people aren't safe, they just won't perform their best. So they have to feel safe, and there's lots of different things that go into unpacking that.
No, I think safety is critical, but I'd like to focus on speed for a second. And
Okay.
Going back to the original stories and with Kim and Lori, and I'd like to know how long this transition took you to take, but the slowing down part, especially in, when we talk about shared service with organization, finance, HR, IT, never a dull moment in anyone because we're providing service, not servitude, service, right? How long did this take you to get through that transition? And how do you practice the pace of slowing down? And Aaron is not a slow guy for all intents and purposes. He's an intense guy. So Laura, do you mind starting us off with how long it took and how do you practice the
he's not slow, but every session that we had, we started with a body scan, and that's how I learned. But now I do it on my own, at least daily, if not more than once a day. How long it took, I'm still learning. I'm a work in progress, so it's not something that I'm perfect at, but I would say I noticed a pretty quick change when I started this practice. So I'll give you an example of something that I learned through a body scan. So I was having a personal relationship issue with someone close with me, and I was trying to describe this to Aaron, and he had me stop and still and listen to what my body was telling me, and I was having a lump in my throat. And what I learned is that means I feel like I don't have my voice. I need to have a voice, and my body is saying, hello, I'm stuck down here. So, and the other part of this that I learned, we haven't really touched on this, but the part of it that matters for me is I can't decide how someone else is going to interpret me or receive what I have to say, or how they're going to feel about me, or how they're going to regard me. I can only control my own perspective and my own energy and my own path. So I really just needed to say what I needed to say. And if they're not going to hear me, I need to find a way to get that out. And it can be, I send them a letter. It can be, I send them a voicemail. Like I just need to honor what my body is telling me it needs. And I can't make them feel differently. I just need to respect that my voice needed to be heard. So it's a learning. I don't know if I'm articulating that all that well, but it's a learning about honoring what your body is telling you and making that more important than how other people feel about you.
Well, I appreciate the story. I heard you and interpreting what your body was saying, and being able to understand that is a true gift that Aaron gave you, and I appreciate you sharing that. Kim, do you mind sharing your journey and how it took you and your slowdown?
Yeah, so Aaron and I have been friends for a while, and we would hang out at MES together. And one MES, I think it was in 2022, Aaron, right down the road from where I am right now at the Red Rock Casino. It's called the Lucky Bar. And yes, it is my lucky bar, because that happened to be, well, you might not think this is so lucky, but it happened to be the day that Aaron and we spent a significant amount of time together, and we we're sitting at the Lucky Bar. Yes, there was alcohol involved, but not that much. And to the point where I was really unloading on Aaron. He's like, "How are you doing? How are things going?" And he knew we were going through transformation, and I was unloading. And he just looked at me and he says, "I can help you, and I can tell you something, but you're not going to like it." I'm like, "Okay, well, what? Help me out." And he said, "You ready, Aaron?" He said,
"Well, you got to preface. You're throwing me under the bus here." I said, "You want the truth? You want to know the truth?"
Yeah. And I said, "Yes."
Yeah, and I said, "Are you sure?"
And now I don't think there was enough alcohol actually, because when he actually did say this, I said, "Well, explain why." He said, "This is the truth. It's not him, it's you." So
you were telling me about a situation with somebody
it was difficult, and I was convinced that it was not me, it was them, right? I was convinced. Well, Aaron has proven to me that yes, it was me. And that's okay. I had an aha moment in one of the sessions with Aaron, where he shared with me something that I'd heard before, but I'd not really given it much thought. And it was part of the inaugural address by Nelson Mandela in 1994. And there's a famous quote that comes out of that, but the one that really resonates with me is it's the end of that address, and it's that as we're liberated from our fear, our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And that is the power. That's the power within. When you actually recognize that you're feeling this way and that it is you, it's not them, it's you. You're liberated. You understand, you get it. It's just such an aha moment. And it was when Aaron shared that with me, and then I went back and reflected on that for a while and thought, what? There's something about this that really does feel strong. It's affected me, and it was that. And I look back in my life, and I remember when I had a Jeep Liberty the first year I got this Liberty, and I was so excited, and I was young, and I got this vanity plate that said "Liberated One," right? My husband's like, "I hate that license plate." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "You're not liberated." I'm like, "Oh, yes, I am. I'm liberated." We would have arguments about this license plate. So I got rid of the Jeep, got rid of the license plate, and now I realize that I am the liberated one.
Yeah.
And I am helping to liberate others, to lead that empowered life, and to have a power within belief. And it's being lovingly present, insatiably curious. I got a tattoo on my arm for that, by the way, because that was one of the mantras that Aaron taught me.
That isn't a requirement of the program, by the way.
No, it is not. It is not. That was my own. But being vulnerable, because you have to be vulnerable. You have to take that risk, and you have to recognize the fear, not only within yourself, but within others. And then you have those breakthrough moments.
As you're talking about this, I'm engrossing your story and thinking about everything we've talked about, how do you know the problems is you, your aha moments, and you're speaking about this. I've been overly impressed with the transition you made, your aha moment, and you're sharing that. And then you shared something else with me. Once you guys, people always talk about culture eats strategy for breakfast, changing your culture in your organization, and you both gone through this when you said to me first, how do you know the problem's you? I don't know how many leaders would be willing to admit that they are the problem and they need to fix themselves before they can solve any problem. How many times have we thrown the baby out with the bathwater before we say, hey, I'm the problem, I can fix my own problem? And you both shared a story with me about how now you live that every day when you try to, you can't change everyone immediately, but you go individually and change your culture in your organizations. If you mind sharing that story, because I think people might want to hear that, because you are actively trying to change the story or flip that script within what you do every day. Lori, I mean, HR is a perfect place to start if you don't mind, but how are you as an HR leader of people trying to change that story?
And Lori, just because I know, can you go back like 4 years back under the old regime that what you guys were coming out of, like how far you had to come?
Thank you, Aaron. That'd be great.
Sure. And Kim touched on this a little bit earlier, but coming out of former leadership, we really were a culture of fear. Our leader led with fear, and it was effective in its own way, but not healthy. And it cultivated, I think, a lot of the issues that that Kim and I are describing, but I think it exists everywhere. We had new leadership come in, and they really wanted to change that that status, that norm in our organization. And we worked pretty hard at making that transformation. One of our established core values was fearless. And we challenged our employees to become fearless, and we celebrated when employees exhibited fearlessness. And that helped us to kind of move out of that realm, but there was always still this, and still is to some effect, that underlying fear. What happens if our strategy doesn't work? What happens if somebody thinks badly of me? What happens if my job goes away? What happens if I don't succeed here? Those are all kind of normal, but our focus is helping people look at what is and focus on that true commitment to what is, and not focus on the what ifs. And I mean, I'll just share something that was really powerful for me that I've really tried to work with my own team on. And that's that, and it all comes from within. It's not like what someone thinks of me doesn't define my success, doesn't define how good I am at my work. My joy, my peace, my confidence comes from within. And if I could teach my kids, my team, my colleagues, nothing else, I would want them to learn that. Because when you learn that, and when you stop putting yourself at the mercy of everyone else's opinion, and you learn that you have everything inside of you that you need, and no matter what happens, you have confidence that you can get through it, and you know that you can get through it, boy, does that take away that culture of fear, that constant underlying nervousness that people feel when they're in that state. So for me, that's really the focus of how I want to lead this culture.
Man, I just have to say I couldn't be more proud. As I feel like a proud papa. I couldn't be more proud than I am right now of hearing you say that, Lori, because and both of these ladies have modeled it exceptionally well. The amount of transformation and the impact they're having on the people around them in their organization and outside their organization is amazing. The things that they've accomplished. But just to hear you say those words, I'm starting to get choked up here. So,
Well, we'll make it worse in a few minutes.
oh, great.
I just want to say one thing to Lori to add on to that. I was recently standing in an area called the Hub at work, and feeling a little frustrated, and I was a little down. And Lori is sitting there having lunch or just conversation with one of her employees, and they just looked at me, and her employee said, "What is it that you need?" How often do you hear that from people? What is it that you need? That is an amazing question to ask. And that's how you begin attunement and being in, I'm listening, I'm hearing you. What is it that you need? How can I help you get where you need to be? That's the human element. And I think Lori is changing it, one person at a time within her organization. And I'm attempting to do it within my organization. And it will spread. It's infectious. That power within, it's infectious.
So we leaders talk about building the relationships within the organization, right? Especially at levels that have impact across up and down the organization. Doesn't really matter. You have to build deep, intimate relationships everywhere, right? And you two have established this relationship that transcends the professional relationship you're supposed to have. And we've talked about this. And Kim, you're living the HR dream that they would want their peers in the organization to live, because you're seeing what's happening here at Lourie, and the two of you do this together. So that trust that you built between each other, I just said it, but yes. So as Joyce and I both said, building that trust between each other is an excellent addition to what your organization does. So how does that continue through the relationship you two are building there, and what you're not only dialogue you're having with each other, but you're having around each other about how to help outside of your organizations, Kim, not just IT, Lourie, not just HR, but helping outside that impact the rest of the organization. So Kim, what are you doing to continue what Lourie has started within HR, or what you guys have got together working with Aaron? And Aaron, I'm going to throw this right back to you in a second. You'll see.
Currently, I'm leading a project across the organization to move off of one financial system onto another financial platform. And for a publicly traded company, that's a big deal. So I have an opportunity, and it's a challenge, because change management is a real opportunity at every organization. But it is the most important part of a major technology project, and the transformation is the people, right? So I have an opportunity on a daily basis to be in meetings and present with people, and being present and hearing what they are saying, and genuinely making them aware of the fact that you hear them, because that's really what people want in a project where we're moving their cheese. We're changing their business process. We're changing the screens, the system that they're in. But really, it's about the anxiety that they feel, because they're not certain. They're uncertain about what that change means. So I'll do a body scan before I go into that meeting, knowing that I'm going to be with a group of people who are anxious about the change. And we're going to ask them the same question for the 7,000th time, I think, about what they do every day. And they're going to have to explain it again and get frustrated with us. And it happens on a regular basis. But it's me saying, look, I know this is frustrating for you. I can feel it. I know it, and bear with us. We just need to really understand what it is that you do. Because if we don't understand, we can't give you something that you're going to be able to use. That's attunement. That's having people really believe that you're listening, that you're hearing them. And I say repeatedly in meetings, I hear you. I hear you. So I believe that just by the way that I behave in those meetings, by the tools that Aaron has shared with me and I'm practicing, I'm able to lead meetings to get people through conversations in a way that they receive well, they feel heard, and they believe and they trust. And they trust that you're going to deliver something that they're going to be able to use, that is going to make their lives better. That's huge in the world of technology. So I think taking these tools and paying it forward by example is probably the most powerful way I think we're able to spread this throughout the organization.
And I think that attunement is truly critical in at work, at life, everywhere. If you're not aware of what's going on with the people around you, then I think we're doing a disservice to being truly authentic. So Aaron, I'm going to just throw this back to you in a half a second. So I just got to say one thing. As we're getting within our last 10 minutes, we're going to go through our last few thoughts. Lourie and Kim have been spectacular, knowing full well that this isn't their sweet spot, nor they didn't come kicking and screaming, but with a little bit extra coaching and my frustration with this topic, Aaron, a little bit over the last few weeks, is a testament to who you are and the impact you've had in our lives. So if that wasn't emotionally draining, just the fact that these two killed it today is a testament to what you bring to the table, what you brought to their lives. So if you can round out there how the attunement is important and how to bring that into your life every day, and then tell everyone how we can all do a body scan and when you're going to host that masterclass for everyone, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. What a tee up. First of all, again, almost all my clients are smarter, wealthier, more successful than me if they weren't living my life, because I actually feel like the most successful person on the planet because I love my life. I love my work. And I get to work with amazing people like Lori and Kim and you, Rob, who just allow me to, be the leader whisperer, right? My 16-year-old is a brilliant artist who you can't see, it's not finished, but this is a hand sketch drawing of an ancient story of these two leaders holding up their leader's arms because he's getting fatigued. And I have to believe the story. I'm adding this part where they're whispering in his ear, you can do it. You can keep going. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel like I get to do. I'm not the leader. I'm the encourager to the leaders. But what Kim was alluding to just a minute ago about how she does this is it's less about doing than it is about being. We don't learn through most. Let me take a sidestep here. Most leadership programs, coaching involves skills-based acquisition. We're not doing that. That's 5%, 10% of what I do with leaders. Most of the executives I work with are more advanced than myself. So there is a gap. Everyone has something, whether it's negotiation or presentation or whatever it is we can work on a specific skill. But what's actually happening is we're actually re-experiencing the way we operate, because we have to learn a new way. And we don't learn through just knowledge transfer. We learn through actual experience. This is harder and harder in this digital era where we're inundated, we're bombarded with more information. So that's why for real substantive change, we have to experience something new, because that's how we all know it intuitively. We learn through experience, but then we try to educate people by cramming information down their throats. So as far as, how do you do a body scan? This is one of dozens of tools that Lori and Kim have practiced. And let's just go through one real quick. Wherever you're sitting, whatever you're doing right now, if you're driving, I just want to encourage you, if you're not driving, if you're sitting, close your eyes, take a second and just start deep breathing. If you did 3 to 5 breaths and you breathed out longer than you breathe in, that will cue your nervous system that you are in fact safe, because you don't breathe like that when you're running for your life. So deep breaths in, longer breath out. You do a handful of those. And if you can keep your eyes closed, it's even better. It avoids distraction. Hands open, feet uncrossed. I'd encourage you to just start at your toes and notice. Your feet comfortable in your shoes. Work your way up to your legs. Any cramping or stiffness. Notice your pelvis in the chair. Do you feel your buttocks? Do you feel your tailbone? Are you comfortable in your chair? Do you even like your chair? And now it's where it gets really interesting. Notice at your core, your lower gut or abdomen, any sensations you noticed. Do you have butterflies, achiness? Work your way up through your rib cage. How's your heart rate? You feel your lungs expanding and relaxing. You notice back tension through your chest and your neck or your throat, even your face and your upper shoulders. And you just want to take an inventory without judging. Just what do you notice? And then often what we realize is that we have these funny sayings in our culture about these different body parts, like you're a pain in my neck. You make me sick to my stomach. And there's a reason, because different emotions have different places that they generally live. And so as we do that, you can open your eyes. And I just want you to take a record of what you observed. Now, hopefully right now you're at a place where you're just enjoying a great conversation with some great friends here. But as you go about the rest of your day, you'll notice most of us shift gears rather quickly. As soon as there's a task to be done or performed, as soon as there's an interaction or a collaboration or a work product or a meeting, I'd encourage you to just pay attention what's your body telling you. And that's kind of the first step.
Well, Aaron, thank you for that. And I wish we would have made it past question 4 today, because there's some really great questions that we could have gone through. And one specifically I would have liked to go, what's your most surprising or challenging about your transition of the work? And I'm going to throw that out in our LinkedIn chat, because I'm sure we got some comments and questions there. Lori, Kim, maybe you guys can jump in that and comment on it at some point after tomorrow when we when we post to LinkedIn. So before we wrap, I want to thank you guys. Lori, any way people get in touch with you, any last thoughts you want to send to people out there? LinkedIn's the best way.
Yep, that's great.
Kim, how about you?
I'm not great with LinkedIn, but I'll try better. No, LinkedIn is a good way.
We're going to keep Lori honest by throwing her questions regularly answered, because again, question 4 out of all that we had is not great. So we're gonna throw more out to you, Lori, and Lori and Kim will have you guys come then. Aaron, how do people get in touch with you?
I think John has a slide he can throw up there, which so we just launched an executive cohort. So, I do strategic retreats. I help organizations with cohesive culture, strategic clarity, thriving leaders, and performance optimization. But we just launched an executive cohort. So instead of doing one-on-one or all-day events, executives from around the country can journey together for 6 months, twice a month, 90 minutes. And so I don't know if we're showing that slide.
No, the slide.
Okay. So anyways, you can go to trueincrease.com, or you can go to LinkedIn and find me there. You can see the posts I've done on the cohort that's starting up here in less than 30 days, and it's filling up. So yeah, you can reach me any way you want. Just Aaron Brown, True Increase, Capacity Coach, LinkedIn, whatever.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. Guys, if you don't mind staying for a few minutes, I thank everyone for coming. We have a couple of great shows coming up with some titans of manufacturing, some people of cyber. Great. I'm happy we had that conversation today, and I appreciate everyone for watching today, and we'll stream it live on YouTube tomorrow. So thanks again for watching on Leading the Digital Era.
You're welcome. Thank you
For having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining Leading in the Digital Era, hosted by Robert Field. Look for more Leading in the Digital Era, presented by the Institute for Digital Transformation, coming to a LinkedIn Live session soon. Can't join Robert for the live session? You can catch the replay anytime on our YouTube channel.